Welcome to Facts Radio, your journey through history begins here. In this episode, we explore World War I, all you need to know. The conflict that erupted in 1914 would stretch across continents, transform nations, and leave millions of lives forever altered. It was a war unlike any before, defined by trenches, technological innovation, and human endurance. Over 4 years, ordinary people faced extraordinary circumstances, and the world witnessed both the depths of suffering and the heights of courage. We'll journey from the spark in Sarajevo to the armistice of 1918, uncovering the battles, the strategies, the leaders, and the human stories that shaped this global catastrophe. As we move month by month and year by year, we'll see how ambition, alliances, and chance collided to produce a war that changed the 20th century forever. Chapter 1: The Spark of War, Summer 1914. It all began with a single, tragic event. On June 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary and his wife Sophie were assassinated in Sarajevo by Gavrilo Princip, a young Bosnian Serb nationalist. To many, this was a shocking but localized political act. Yet, within the entangled alliances of Europe, it became a trigger that would ignite the continent into war. Austria-Hungary issued a harsh ultimatum to Serbia, backed by Germany's promise of support. Serbia, though conciliatory, resisted certain demands that would undermine its sovereignty. Within days, diplomatic negotiations collapsed, and Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia on July 28. Russia mobilized to defend Serbia, prompting Germany to declare war on Russia. France, allied with Russia, began mobilization as well. When German forces violated Belgium's neutrality to attack France, Britain entered the war. In just weeks, what could have been a regional conflict became a full-scale European war. Across cities and towns, young men marched off to battle. Crowds waved flags and sang patriotic songs, believing the war would be over by Christmas. Behind the fanfare, generals and soldiers alike were unaware of the scale and duration that lay ahead. Modern industrial weapons would soon render traditional notions of honor and glory obsolete. By the end of July, Europe had entered a new and terrifying era. Old empires teetered on the brink, alliances were set in motion, and the world hurtled toward a catastrophe that few could imagine. Chapter 2: Europe in Flames, August 1914. August brought the first major movements of armies across the continent. Germany's Schlieffen Plan called for a rapid strike through Belgium to capture Paris. Belgian forces resisted fiercely, and civilians endured bombardments and atrocities, drawing global outrage. The destruction of towns like Louvain became symbols of the war's merciless nature. In Belgium, British forces met the Germans at Mons. Despite being heavily outnumbered, they fought with discipline and courage, buying precious time for the French to reorganize. Their bravery earned them recognition as the Old Contemptibles, though the retreat under constant fire foreshadowed the grueling challenges to come. France launched the Plan 17 offensive, hoping to strike swiftly into German territory. Soldiers advanced in bright uniforms across open fields, only to be met with machine gun fire and artillery. Casualties were staggering, a grim lesson in the lethality of modern weaponry. By early September, the Battle of the Marne halted the German advance toward Paris. Soldiers dug in, creating the first long, static trenches of what would become the Western Front. The war's mobility ended, replaced by a deadly stalemate. Elsewhere, the Eastern Front saw German and Austro-Hungarian forces confront the Russians. Battle spread over vast distances, with entire divisions encircled or destroyed. The conflict was no longer confined to small fronts, it was a continental, and soon global, war. The first month of fighting revealed the immense scale, the human cost, and the technological power that would define World War I. Europe had ignited in flames, and the world was watching. Chapter 3: The Stalemate and Trench Warfare, Winter 1914 to 1915. By late 1914, the Western Front had frozen into a deadly stalemate. Trenches stretched from the North Sea to Switzerland, filled with mud, rats, and the constant threat of artillery fire. Soldiers faced exhaustion, disease, and the daily reality of death. Survival became a skill measured in hours and minutes. The Battle of Ypres introduced poison gas to the battlefield, adding a new layer of terror. Chlorine clouds drifted over enemy lines, leaving soldiers choking, blinded, or dead. While weapons evolved, tactics lagged, and commanders still relied on mass charges that led to catastrophic losses. Despite the horror, human moments persisted. On Christmas Eve 1914, opposing soldiers ventured into no man's land to exchange greetings, share rations, and even play football. It was a fleeting glimpse of humanity amid the mechanized horror of war. Elsewhere, campaigns unfolded across the globe. Japan seized German colonies in the Pacific. The Ottoman Empire entered the war on the side of the Central Powers, creating new fronts in the Middle East. Africa became a theater of conflict as colonial powers clashed far from European shores. Soldiers wrote letters home, documenting both mundane life and extraordinary events. These personal accounts reveal the mixture of fear, humor, hope, and despair that defined daily life on the front lines. By winter's end, the war showed no signs of yielding. The promise of a quick resolution had vanished, replaced by the grim reality of a protracted, global conflict. Chapter 4: The World at War, 1915. 1915 marked the expansion of the war beyond Europe. On the Western Front, trench warfare persisted, with little change in territory but constant suffering. Each assault resulted in massive casualties, yet the front lines barely shifted. New weapons arrived: chlorine and mustard gas, flamethrowers, and more powerful artillery changed the battlefield's nature. The psychological impact was as severe as the physical, leaving soldiers in a constant state of tension. The Gallipoli campaign aimed to open a sea route to Russia but ended disastrously for the Allies. Thousands of Anzac troops faced harsh terrain, poor planning, and fierce Ottoman resistance. The campaign became a symbol of courage amid failure. In Eastern Europe, Russia endured crushing defeats against Germany and Austria-Hungary. Morale faltered, and the strains of war contributed to mounting unrest at home. Italy joined the Allies, opening a new front against Austria-Hungary in the Alps. Naval warfare escalated. German U-boats targeted Allied shipping, sinking merchant vessels and civilian ships alike. The sinking of the Lusitania killed over 1,000 people, including 128 Americans, edging the United States closer to war. By the end of 1915, the world was fully engulfed. The conflict's scale, complexity, and human cost continued to escalate, with no clear end in sight. Chapter 5: Hell on Earth, 1916. 1916 brought unprecedented carnage. Verdun, a battle lasting 10 months, became a symbol of French endurance and German determination. Soldiers faced relentless shelling and brutal conditions. "They shall not pass" became France's rallying cry, echoing the resilience of its defenders. That summer, the Battle of the Somme commenced. A week-long artillery bombardment preceded infantry advances, yet German defenses remained intact. On the first day, Britain suffered over 57,000 casualties. Survival and courage were measured in minutes rather than victories. Trench life remained horrific. Soldiers contended with mud, vermin, and disease. Letters home became a lifeline, providing rare glimpses of normalcy amid chaos. Camaraderie helped maintain morale, even as the war ground on. Technology evolved rapidly. Tanks made their debut, airplanes engaged in dogfights, and machine guns dominated the battlefield. Commanders experimented with tactics, but gains were slow and costly. On all fronts, civilians felt the war's impact. Cities were disrupted, food was scarce, and economies shifted toward total war. Families lived in fear as news from the front lines trickled in, and entire societies began to change. 1916 left millions dead and wounded. Yet, despite the staggering toll, the conflict showed no signs of abating. The war had become a test of endurance, both for soldiers and nations. Chapter 6: Revolt, Renewal, and U.S. Entry, 1917. 1917 reshaped the war entirely. In Russia, hardship, defeat, and hunger sparked revolution. Tsar Nicholas II abdicated, and later that year, the Bolsheviks seized power, pulling Russia out of the war. The Eastern Front quieted, allowing Germany to focus westward. The Western Front remained brutal. French soldiers mutinied after repeated failures, demanding rest and better conditions. British offensives, such as Passchendaele, highlighted the futility of frontal assaults through mud and relentless artillery. Across the Atlantic, the United States entered the war following German submarine attacks and the Zimmermann telegram. American troops began arriving in Europe, providing fresh energy and strategic advantage to the weary Allies. The home front transformed. Women entered factories and offices, sustaining economies while men fought abroad. Propaganda and rationing became part of daily life, as societies adapted to the demands of total war. By year's end, the conflict had truly become global. Nations felt the strain of prolonged fighting, yet hope returned with American involvement. The momentum was slowly shifting, signaling that change was on the horizon. Chapter 7, The Final Year, 1918. 1918 began with Germany's spring offensive, an attempt to secure victory before American forces arrived in force. Initially, German troops advanced rapidly, but logistical issues and exhaustion stalled their gains. Allied counteroffensives, now reinforced by fresh American divisions, began to push German forces back. Towns were retaken, and morale improved as the tide turned. Across Europe, the Central Powers began to crumble under internal and external pressures. Bulgaria, the Ottoman Empire, and Austria-Hungary surrendered. Civil unrest spread through Germany, leading to the abdication of Kaiser Wilhelm II. Exhausted soldiers and citizens longed for peace after 4 years of relentless conflict. On November 11, 1918, the armistice was signed in a railway carriage in Compiègne, France. The guns fell silent, ending the fighting on the Western Front. Millions had perished, countless more were wounded, and entire empires had dissolved. The war left scars on nations and individuals alike. It transformed politics, society, and technology. Entire generations carried the memories of trenches, gas attacks, and battlefield heroism, shaping a century that would remember their sacrifices. Closing summary. World War I was not merely a clash of armies, it was a collision of ideas, empires, and humanity itself. It exposed the limits of diplomacy, the destructiveness of industrialized warfare, and the resilience of the human spirit. Across muddy trenches, deserts, and seas, men and women endured unimaginable hardship. The conflict reshaped borders, toppled monarchies, and altered societies forever. Millions of personal stories of courage, loss, and endurance remind us that history is not only dates and battles, but the lived experiences of people caught in extraordinary circumstances. Reflecting on the Great War, we see both tragedy and lessons. The cost of miscalculation, unchecked nationalism, and technological warfare is immense. Yet the courage, camaraderie, and sacrifices offer enduring inspiration. As we remember World War I, we honor those who lived, fought, and dreamed of peace. Their stories echo across the century, reminding us of the fragility of humanity and the enduring hope for a world that learns from its past. This has been World War I, all you need to know. Thank you for joining us, and for listening to the stories that continue to shape our world.